I want you to imagine something for a moment. You've been texting him, calling him, checking in, making the effort, and he's been responding but not really initiating. And then suddenly you stop, silence, nothing, you pull back. And now something fascinating happens. At first, he might not even notice. He's busy, distracted, living his life. He assumes you'll message him eventually, because you always do. But then a day passes, 2, 3, and suddenly a tiny thought creeps into his mind. Wait, where did she go? See, human nature is funny like that. We take for granted what feels guaranteed. The moment something familiar disappears, we start to crave it. It's like when your favorite coffee shop suddenly closes for a day. You don't even drink coffee that often, but now you desperately want it. This is how attraction works. When you stop texting and calling, you disrupt his pattern, you shake up the script. And suddenly, he's confronted with a truth he's been avoiding. Was I just coasting? Did I take her presence for granted? Do I actually want to lose her? And here's where things get interesting. His emotional response will tell you everything. Some men, when faced with silence, will panic. They'll check their phone more often, hoping to see your name. They might even send a casual, "Hey, how have you been?" just to see if you'll jump at the opportunity to respond. Others, they'll do nothing. They'll assume you'll eventually cave, and that's where most people make a mistake, because what happens, you start to doubt yourself. Maybe he's just busy, maybe I should reach out. No, if he truly cares, if he truly values you, he will make an effort. Period. Because here's the secret. A man who genuinely wants to be with you will never be comfortable with the idea of losing you. Taking back your power. And here's where you win. See, the goal isn't to play games. It's not about manipulation. It's about something far bigger. Self-respect. You are not here to prove your worth to someone. You are here to recognize your own worth and act accordingly. The moment you stop chasing, something magical happens. You stop worrying about his reaction and start focusing on your life, your goals, your happiness, your peace. And ironically, that's the moment when the right man will step up. Because the truth is, you should never have to beg for someone's attention. The right man will notice your absence. And if he doesn't, well, then he was never the right man to begin with. So, my challenge for you, try it. Step back, focus on yourself, and watch what happens. Because when you stop texting and calling, he will react. The question is, will he prove he's worth your time? There is something undeniably powerful about absence. It's a force that shifts dynamics, rewires emotions, and shakes up the expectations people have grown comfortable with. When you've been present, whether it's through texting, calling, or constantly checking in, your presence becomes a given. It becomes a rhythm in his life, an expectation that lingers in the background like a song on repeat. And yet, the moment you withdraw that presence, something fascinating happens. At first, it might seem like nothing is changing. You stop initiating conversations, you stop reaching out, and for a moment the world continues spinning just as it was before. But beneath the surface, something is already beginning to shift. Because whether people admit it or not, they are wired to notice change. We are creatures of habit. And when a pattern is broken, especially one we've grown used to, it leaves a void that demands attention. A man who has grown accustomed to your attention may not consciously appreciate it while it's there. That's human nature. We often fail to recognize the value of something when it's readily available. But when that constant presence suddenly disappears, it disrupts the flow. It interrupts the predictability. And most importantly, it forces him to question something he hasn't had to think about before. What happens if she doesn't come back? At first, the response might be subtle. Maybe he barely registers it. Maybe he assumes you're just busy, that you'll reach out eventually. But then, as time stretches on, the reality starts to set in. That good morning text, it doesn't come. That random check-in, silence. That safety net of knowing you'll always be there, waiting, reaching out, making the effort, gone. Now, the absence you've created does something that presence never could. It forces him to feel your worth. See, when you're always available, it's easy to be taken for granted, not necessarily in a malicious way, but in an assumed way. He assumes you'll always be there, that he doesn't have to put in extra effort, that your attention is guaranteed. And when something is guaranteed, it loses its perceived value. Think about it like this. If you had a favorite dessert waiting for you on the table every single day, you might enjoy it, but you wouldn't crave it. You wouldn't obsess over it. You wouldn't wonder what it would feel like to go without it. But the moment it stops appearing, the moment you have to wonder whether it will ever come back, that's when desire kicks in. That's when a sense of urgency begins to creep in. Absence amplifies desire. It makes a person confront what they might lose. And this is where true clarity emerges. Because a man's response to your absence will reveal what he truly feels. If he values you, he will feel the shift. He will notice the difference. And more importantly, he will be moved to act. If he doesn't, then the truth was already there all along. The beauty of absence is that it does not beg for attention. It does not plead. It does not convince. It simply exists, creating space for the other person to step forward or to stay behind. And in that space, the truth is revealed. There comes a moment in almost every relationship where a man begins to pull away. It can feel confusing, frustrating, even painful, especially if things seem to be going well. One day, he's attentive, engaged, initiating conversations, making plans. The next, he's distant. His replies are shorter, his energy feels different, and suddenly it's as if he's slipping through your fingers. The instinctive reaction in this situation is to close the gap, to ask what's wrong, to seek reassurance, to try and pull him back in before he drifts too far. But this is where most people misunderstand what's actually happening beneath the surface. Because contrary to what it may feel like, a man pulling away doesn't always mean he's losing interest. In many cases, it has nothing to do with his feelings for you at all. Men pull away for a variety of reasons, but at the core of it is a need for space. It's not about you, it's about him. His emotions, his thoughts, his need to process what he's feeling without external pressure. This is especially true for men who are emotionally invested but feel overwhelmed, either by the speed of the relationship, their own personal struggles, or a subconscious fear of losing their independence. Unlike women, who often process emotions through conversation and connection, men are wired differently. When something feels heavy, confusing, or uncertain, their first instinct is often to retreat rather than engage. It's not about shutting you out. It's about figuring things out on their own terms. And the more someone tries to pull them back in during this time, the more they instinctively push away. This is where the real challenge arises. Because when a man pulls away, the natural response is to chase, to ask, what's wrong? Did I do something? Why aren't you texting me like before? And while these questions come from a place of care, they can create a sense of pressure that makes him withdraw even further. The more he feels like he's being cornered into responding, the more he struggles to regain a sense of autonomy. But when you do the opposite, when you don't chase, don't demand answers, don't pressure him into immediate clarity, something unexpected happens. Instead of feeling suffocated, he feels the space to breathe. Instead of feeling like he's being pulled in a direction he's not ready for, he gets the time to miss you, to reflect, to recognize what he values. This is why pulling back rather than pushing forward is often the most effective response when a man distances himself. It's not about playing games or trying to manipulate his emotions. It's about understanding that real connection cannot be forced. That when someone is meant to be in your life, they will find their way back on their own. And if they don't, that absence reveals a truth that presence never could. Silence is a powerful thing. It's not loud. It doesn't demand. and yet it has the ability to stir emotions in ways that words often cannot. When you remove yourself from someone's immediate reach, when you stop texting, stop calling, stop initiating, you create a space that forces them to sit with their own emotions. And for a man who has grown accustomed to your presence, that silence does something he may not have expected. It makes him feel. At first, he may not register it as anything significant. He might assume you're just busy, preoccupied, or taking a little time for yourself. But as that silence stretches longer than expected, it begins to tug at him in ways he can't ignore. He starts checking his phone more often, wondering why he hasn't heard from you. A small curiosity creeps in. Is she okay? Did something happen? And more importantly, why do I care so much? Then comes the shift. That initial curiosity turns into a subtle discomfort. He starts replaying past interactions in his mind, searching for a reason behind your silence. Did he say something wrong? Did he do something to push you away? What changed? The absence of your presence forces him into reflection, into questioning himself in ways he wouldn't have if you had continued reaching out as usual. And this is where emotions start to intensify. If he valued your presence but took it for granted, regret begins to creep in. He starts to recognize the comfort he felt knowing you were always there, the quiet assurance that he never had to worry about losing you. But now, with no new messages, no check-ins, no reminders of your interest, he's left with the unsettling feeling of uncertainty. In some cases, this silence can trigger panic, not necessarily the kind that sends him into a full-blown emotional crisis, but the kind that makes him feel unsettled. That realization of, wait, what if she's actually slipping away? It's in this moment that he is forced to rethink his priorities. Because when something we value is at risk of being lost, we naturally reassess its importance in our lives. That's the thing about silence. It doesn't beg for attention, it commands it. When you stop giving someone the constant validation of your presence, they have no choice but to face their own emotions without distraction. And for a man who has been used to you always being there, that silence is loud. It speaks in ways words never could. It makes him feel in ways he wasn't prepared for. Some men will respond by reaching out, eager to bridge the gap and bring back the familiarity of your connection. Others will hesitate, grappling with emotions they're not sure how to process. And some, those who were never truly invested, will let the silence linger, revealing a truth that might have taken much longer to come to light had you continued to pursue them. But no matter how he reacts, one thing is certain. Your silence will make him think. It will force him to confront feelings he might have avoided. It will create a space where his true emotions rise to the surface, no longer masked by the comfort of knowing you'll always be there. Human nature is wired in a way that makes us crave what we can't easily have. It's the reason we're drawn to limited edition products, why we chase after goals that seem just out of reach, and why people suddenly seem more desirable when they become less available. The moment something feels uncertain, our minds assign it more value. And when it comes to relationships, this principle plays a crucial role in attraction. When you stop initiating, when you stop being the one who always texts first, always makes plans, always puts in the effort, you trigger a psychological shift. Suddenly, you're no longer a given. You're not constantly within reach, readily available at a moment's notice. Instead, you become a question in his mind, a puzzle he suddenly feels the need to solve. At first, he may not realize what's happening. He might assume you're just having a busy day or that you'll reach out eventually, as you always do. But as time passes and that expected message doesn't come, something changes. His brain, which has been conditioned to expect your presence, suddenly experiences a gap, and that gap creates curiosity. Curiosity is the foundation of pursuit. It makes us ask why. Why hasn't she texted? Why isn't she reaching out? Did something change? Is she losing interest? The more these thoughts circulate, the more his mind starts to focus on you in a way it hadn't before. And the more he thinks about you, the stronger his emotional investment becomes. This is where scarcity plays a crucial role. When something is always available, we don't question its value. We assume it will always be there, and as a result, we don't feel the urgency to act. But when that availability is removed, when something becomes rare, uncertain, or potentially slipping away, it triggers a primal instinct, the fear of loss. And the fear of loss makes us want to hold on tighter. Men by nature are wired to pursue. It's not about playing games or manipulating emotions. It's about creating a dynamic where he actively chooses to invest in you rather than passively receiving your attention. When you step back, you give him the space to step forward. When you stop initiating, you allow him to feel the natural pull of desire rather than the pressure of expectation. And this is the key difference between attraction and obligation. When someone feels obligated to respond, when they know you'll always be there, always reaching out, it's easy for them to take that presence for granted. But when they feel like they might be losing something valuable, their perception shifts. They no longer see you as just an option. They see you as a priority. This is why confidence and independence are so attractive. A woman who doesn't need to chase, who isn't desperate for validation, who is secure in herself and her worth, she commands attention effortlessly. She doesn't need to convince anyone to value her because she already values herself. And that self-assurance is magnetic. When you stop initiating, you give him the opportunity to show his true level of interest. A man who truly values you will notice your absence and step up. He will make the effort, not because he's being forced to, but because he genuinely wants to. And that's the kind of attraction that lasts. Not one built on pressure or obligation, but on genuine desire. By becoming less accessible, you don't lose value, you gain it. You shift from being an expectation to being a privilege. And in doing so, you create the kind of attraction that isn't just fleeting, it's undeniable. There comes a moment in every relationship, every dating situation, where you have to ask yourself, am I chasing or am I being chosen? Because there's a massive difference. When you chase, you're placing your worth in someone else's hands, waiting for them to validate you with their attention. When you are chosen, it's because you stood in your power and let the right person recognize your value without having to convince them. Taking back your power starts with shifting the focus away from him, his responses, his actions, his decisions, and turning that energy toward yourself. Because the truth is, the more you invest in your own happiness, growth, and confidence, the less you'll feel the need to chase after anyone. You become the prize, not the seeker. It's easy to get caught in the loop of waiting. You send a text and check your phone every few minutes, hoping for a response. You replay past conversations in your mind, trying to figure out what he meant by certain words, whether he was interested or just being polite. You analyze his actions, trying to decode whether he's pulling away or just busy. But all of this waiting, all of this overthinking does one thing. It keeps you stuck. And when you're stuck, you give away your power. So, what happens when you stop waiting, when you stop giving so much mental space to someone who hasn't earned it? You regain control. You redirect that energy back into yourself, your passions, your friendships, your self-improvement. You start to build a life so fulfilling that a man's attention no longer dictates your happiness. Confidence is built in these moments of self-focus. It's built when you stop settling for crumbs of attention and start demanding a full meal of respect, effort, and appreciation. When you walk away from situations that don't serve you, when you stop chasing, you send a powerful message: I am not an option, I am a choice. And that message is what separates a woman who is pursued from one who is merely entertained. The right man, the one who truly values you, won't need to be convinced, reminded, or chased. He will step up because he wants to, not because he feels pressured. And if he doesn't, then he was never the right man to begin with. This is the power of walking away, of choosing yourself first. When you stop waiting and start living, you naturally become more attractive, not just to others, but to yourself. You realize that your happiness was never meant to be dependent on someone else's actions. You don't need a man to validate your worth, because you already know it. When you stop chasing, when you pull back and allow space for a man to show his true intentions, one of two things will happen. He will either step up, realizing what he stands to lose, or he will fade away, revealing that he was never fully invested to begin with. And the beauty of this? Either way, you win. If he makes the effort to reconnect, it's because he has come to understand your value. He realizes that your presence was never a guarantee, that your energy and attention were gifts, not obligations. He starts to reflect on what it means to have you in his life, and suddenly he feels the weight of your absence. It's in that silence, that space you created, where he is forced to confront what he truly feels. This is not about playing games or manipulation. It's about self-respect. You are not pulling back to teach him a lesson. You are simply choosing not to overextend yourself for someone who isn't meeting you halfway. And if he does step up, it will be because he genuinely wants to, not because you pressured him into it. That's how you build a connection based on mutual effort, not one-sided pursuit. But what if he doesn't? What if you pull back and he never reaches out? What if he lets you go without a second thought? That too is a victory, because when someone fails to put in the effort, they are showing you exactly where they stand. They are revealing that their level of investment was never as deep as you deserved. And instead of wasting more time trying to convince them to care, you now have the freedom to walk away with clarity and dignity. Too often, people fear this outcome. They fear that if they stop reaching out, stop putting in the effort, the other person will simply disappear. But here's the truth. That's not a loss. That's a blessing. Because the worst thing you can do is spend your time and energy on someone who was never truly willing to match it. By pulling back, you allow the reality of the situation to surface. You remove the guesswork. You stop wondering where you stand and start seeing things for what they really are. And the greatest part? You are no longer in a position of waiting. You are not sitting around hoping for a response, questioning your worth based on someone else's actions. You are standing tall, knowing that the right person will always make the effort. You are no longer chasing validation. You are expecting respect. By choosing yourself, you create a standard. A standard that says, if you want to be in my life, you have to show up. You have to put in the effort. You have to meet me at my level. And the ones who are meant for you, they will rise to that challenge. The ones who aren't, they will naturally fall away. At the heart of it all, this isn't about playing hard to get. It's about knowing your worth. It's about refusing to settle for inconsistent effort, for half-hearted interest, for someone who only values you when you're constantly available. When you stop chasing, you give a man the space to decide if he truly wants to step up, and in that space, the truth always reveals itself. If he makes the effort, it's because he recognizes that you are someone worth keeping in his life. If he doesn't, then you have your answer. You were never his priority to begin with. But instead of feeling rejected, realize that this is your power. You are no longer waiting, no longer overextending, no longer giving to someone who won't give back. By focusing on your own growth, happiness, and self-worth, you shift the entire dynamic. You move from chasing to choosing, from seeking validation to standing in your confidence. The right man won't need to be convinced. He will see your value and act accordingly. And the wrong one, he will remove himself from the equation, saving you from wasting any more time. So, let go of the fear. Stop waiting for a text. Stop overanalyzing his actions. Stop giving away your energy to someone who hasn't earned it. Instead, pour that energy into yourself, because the most attractive thing you can ever be is a woman who knows she doesn't have to chase what's already meant for her.